Can you hear me, Mark? Can you hear me?
Hear me, Paul?
I can, yeah. Can you hear me, yeah? Mark? Can you hear me?
Paul?
Can you hear me? No? Can you hear me? Mark?
Hello?
Hear me?
Bob?
Yeah. Can you hear me? No? Can you hear me, Mark?
Hello, Paul? Paul? Hello?
Can you hear me, Mark?
Ah, yeah. I don't know what happened there.
No, I couldn't hear you either. I couldn't. I could hear you, but I couldn't speak. Right? Is Betsy there?
I've not got him in yet. No.
No.
That's us.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Celtic Rumours TV with your hosts Mark, Chris and myself, Paul. On tonight's show we'll finish off quickly about the manager's position and Chris will take us through the Celts for Change 2001 statement that was issued to the club in the last couple of days. We will also go through some of your live chat questions, so please get on the line and let us know your thoughts. So, Mark, good channel last night. We covered a lot and
No, it was a good show last night. The time just flew by.
Yeah.
We need to try and keep on a topic, but we were a wee bit all over the place, getting off tangents with conversations. So we need to try and get a wee bit of structure to keep it more in check. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So is Betsy on the line or is he with us?
Just going to get him in.
Like I just as I was waiting for to come in. What's your thoughts on John being part of the new management team, or is there any chance of him staying with us?
Kennedy?
Yeah.
Oh, as I said the other night, I think he'll always have a job at Celtic if he wants that. But it's time for him to go out and try and be a manager himself. Definitely is.
Should he be considered because of the
for
recent kind of run? Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
no, no. No, I wouldn't even if he'd won every game and won the Scottish Cup, I still wouldn't have wanted Kennedy to get the
Mhm.
manager's job.
Mhm. I think it's all of us just kind of guessing now at the moment, and what we're waiting for the club to come out with who this manager is, and I think that's what we're kind of waiting for this statement to come out in this.
I mean, but there's not really any what you would call a hard rumour. It's all
No,
ifs and buts and oh, somebody saw this thing happening here.
no,
There people were saying Eddie Howe was in Glasgow, and yet
yeah,
nobody's got a picture of him.
no one's got a picture. The
Every
only
everybody's got a phone with a camera on it. Do you know what?
And there's no picture there. Yeah, especially this day and age, isn't it? Yeah,
Aye,
yeah,
that's what. See, with rumours and things like that, that's what I always think. Well, why is there no a picture on Twitter
yeah.
about or
The
something?
only the only statement that came out from the Celtics website today is that the Celtic musical has been moved to September 2022. That's the only statement that came out of the club today. And everyone's waiting for the manager's name to be coming out, but that's the only thing they'll have to put out in the last couple of hours is that the Celtic musical has been moved to September 2022. You know,
Important stuff, then, innit?
important stuff. Yeah, we get happy birthdays from ex-players. We get Celtic musicals have been moved, and nothing concrete and what the fans want to know from this club. You know.
I think Besty, is that you online there?
Yes, I'm here, guys.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well. Yeah, good.
Good stuff.
So, Betsy, we were just finishing up there on last night's show. There, we were talking about. Mark said that John Kennedy shouldn't be. There's always a job for him at the club, but managers-wise, we wouldn't have him near the team. What's your thoughts? Should John Kennedy be considered as the manager or in some part of this club going
Well,
forward?
I think, a lot of people would base his potential status as manager on the last couple of games, and I think he hasn't inherited a squad at the moment that's very, very low on confidence, and it's not a real test of him. Should he be considered for the manager's role? Well, I think he would be really, really hit and miss. There's no doubt I think he would take it if he was offered it, because I do feel he's totally committed to the club. And but yeah, as Mark said there, I think there should certainly be a job for him. He's good enough that Brendan Rodgers wanted to take him away with him to Leicester. So the lad clearly has a lot of talent and ability on the coaching side. But he's just in a bad place there at the moment.
Do you think he missed the chance taking the Hibs job there about a year or two ago, going out trying to prove himself before this position is available at Celtic?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because he was offered a job. Well, he was rumoured that he was offered the job. Isn't that right, Mark?
Yeah. I think he was offered it. He was asked if he would be interested, and I don't know what I mean. There was feelers put out to find out if he would be interested, and he said no. How far it went with him. But I thought the Aberdeen job would have been ideal for him.
Yeah.
This American new owner, he's got different ideas, isn't it? Glass was in charge of his team more than MLS, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, exactly. There's actually a thing after coming out there in the last couple of hours is that Scott Brown wants to take Lee Griffiths to Aberdeen with it.
Well, people started saying that as soon as Brown announced it would be gone.
Yeah.
Again, that would be a good move for Griffiths, but how much could Aberdeen afford to give for him?
Exactly.
I mean, Griffiths is I think Griffiths would cause us problems if he was playing against us.
Exactly. I think just Mark.
You can't just give a guy a free transfer and let him join one of your kind of rivals.
Exactly.
That's why I was talking about Burnley, the Chris Davis transfer. Burnley wanted 10 million. No.
Yeah.
They wanted Burnley were told to pay 10 million because it's a look at your 70 teams that you could end up playing against. That's how they look at it. It's like, see if you're selling a player to somebody that you're up against, you need to add extra money on it.
Exactly, and Griffiths would score. He scored goals for Aberdeen.
Oh, if he was,
where he went, yeah, exactly.
See, no matter where Griffiths goes in Scotland, anyway, he'll score goals if he's fit and playing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? At one in his own in himself.
It Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I'm just going to say, people gets his wages off the books and that. What happens in a cup final next year if he scores a winning goal against us?
Exactly. And plus two.
I mean, I'm not saying ask for a lot of money. You can't turn around and ask Aberdeen for £5 million, but you can say we want £1.5 million, £2 million, £2 million.
It's not bad for a player in his last contract at Celtic either, is it? The last year of his contract, but we think we have to be careful as well this year. Is like there's going to be a lot of players moving and they wanted to move in themselves. We have to be careful letting a lot of players go as well this season, because if we're going to let all these players go, we're going to be down to the bare bones anyway within the squad.
I think we're going to be down to the bare bones as it is, the way things
are. Yeah. So moving on from that, I think, look, there's not much we can cover more on the manager because we actually don't know who the manager is going to be at this moment. It's all rumour coming out from fans forums, from media. So one thing we do have that's after coming out is that Chris will take us through the Celts for Change statement that was issued to David McKay. Chris, can you go through that with us?
Yes, absolutely, guys. Yep. Yeah, the Celts for Change 2021 have written an open letter to Celtic's new CEO, Dominic McKay. And any of the listeners, if you haven't yet read the letter in full and you want to, you can find it easily because Ed had put a link to it up in the podcast section. If you can't be bothered doing that, just simply search Google or whatever for Celts for Change 2021, and they have a subheading entitled Latest, and that will basically give you the whole letter. So basically, just a bit of background. I mean, obviously we all know Dominic McKay officially starts work on the 1st of July at Celtic after what appears to have been a fairly successful stint at the Scottish RFU. So it's just over 3 months from now. Now, I say he officially starts then, but I'm sure we'd all be surprised if he isn't already sort of unofficially involved to some degree in the background, even if his coat isn't swinging on the back of the door yet. And maybe he hasn't been given his own private parking space at Paradise, but I'd be quite confident that he's been kept in a loop about what's going on. Now, for those of you who haven't actually heard of Celts for Change 2021, they are effectively a newly formed group of fans and shareholders. And in brief, they strongly believe that the club has become detached from the fan base over the last decade or so. And they believe the board hasn't been acting in the best interests of either Celtic PLC or indeed the fans. So they've written this open letter to Dominic. And in it, they have highlighted 3 main areas of concern, and we'll look at them in turn. Now, I've read it a few times, and to be honest, whilst there's nothing wrong with anything they're saying, it's also fair to say that there really is absolutely nothing new or groundbreaking within it. But then again, they're not claiming to have anything new. Their points are things that we've all been discussing on forums, for quite some time now. So I guess it's just their attempt at collectively telling Mr. McKay what they think needs to be addressed. Not a particularly well-written letter, to be quite honest. I am a bit of a grammar freak and so on. It looks as if someone found a box of apostrophes and threw it at the page, and they're all over the place. But no matter, we'll not worry about English lessons today. The letter doesn't flow particularly well, but we're not going to go through and read the letter word for word because everyone can do that in their own time. And we're not going to be devoting a huge amount of this evening's show to it, simply because it doesn't really warrant much more than a short section of what we're trying to produce for all you listeners. But we will certainly address the main points they're making and what they see as the right way to deal with it, their solutions as such. So the 3 issues that they have focus on, firstly, football operations, secondly, football governance, and then finally, the club persona and identity, as they call it. So we'll start things off by addressing the first topic, which is football operations. Now, they have a few gripes in this area, namely that they feel there has been a lack of quality and experience in some of our managers in the recent years. They're quite aggrieved about missing out on certain players because of bungled transfers for relatively trivial amounts of money. And they mentioned the likes of John McGinn, Darren Fletcher and Ivan Toney as examples of that. They also feel the club has wasted a lot of money on other players who simply didn't make an impact at the club. Now, they're using Big Marvin Comper as their example, but I'm sure we could all add extensively to that particular list. Also, they feel that there has been a failure in the off-the-pitch setup right through the club, namely the sports science department, the diet and nutrition, the data analysis, and so on. So their proposed solution for Dominic McKay coming in, as far as those football operation points are concerned, is that they want him to adopt the policy and the principle of always hiring the best talent available at any particular time for all departments throughout the club. They ideally would like to see him appoint a director of football who would have full control over what happens in the football side. And this would also be someone who would recruit a first-team manager with serious quality. And they make reference to the likes of Martin O'Neill, Gordon Strachan, Brendan Rodgers. And they want the club not to rely on inexperienced or poor quality or convenient appointments purely because it saves money. And finally on that, their solution would be they want McKay to oversee the development of an internal support network that doesn't depend on different managers coming and going. And they want that to cover really everything from the youth system to scouting, the analytics of the team, medical facilities, fitness, and so on. So really, on the operational side, those are what they see as the problems and the potential solutions. What do you see, Paul, or what are your brief thoughts on that particular section?
I think it's briefly what every Celtic fan is actually thinking at the moment, as you said, Chris. Like, it's actually not new what's after coming out in this thing. You know, I think this, as you said there, like the whole problem is lack of spending, top players that we actually have missed out that we could have afforded. You know, and we went for cheap options. You know, we signed Camilla and a Yeti for basically the price that we could have got Tony from this year. You know, so there's always seems to be a cheap option, but there's nothing really new that every Celtic fan knows what's going on at the club, and there's been a lack of what's going on. You know, so I think like is this fans like I really haven't heard of this Celtic for Change until Mark brought it to my attention a couple of days back. You know, so are they trying to just get their name out there to the board that they want this change, or are they representing every Celtic fan? Yeah.
What are your own thoughts on that particular section, Mark?
Well, again, it's just everything that every Celtic fan's been saying. But the part about the football operations and their solution, everything under whoever be the manager shouldn't affect how the club's run. I've been saying that for years.
You have, Mark. Yeah.
Football club shouldn't be run, and there should be like a 5-year plan. You see, if the manager leaves, he'll maybe take some of the coaches with him, but it shouldn't have that much a detrimental effect on the club, because all these other folk are employed by the club, not the manager. They're employed, they're working under the director of football, not the manager. The manager's part should, although it's a very big cog, it's still only a cog in the machine, and if that's the way it should be. There should be chaos in any big club if the manager leaves. Well, there'll be some amount of chaos, but
I think what
rip the heart out the club.
On
the actual group, and notice it's a guy called Alted.
Yes, that's right.
You're saying about his actual English in that, which I'm actually surprised about, because I think he's a really intelligent guy. He was one of the main people, although you're probably going to cover it in the next section about the football governance. He was one of the main people in the Resolution 12, and I followed him on Twitter and read a lot of things and had a couple of conversations with him on Twitter. So he did. I mean, I said that to Paul when I showed him about Alted. He seems to. I don't think he's in it for his own personal glory or anything, because I think he's an older retired guy that's just got his time. Obviously, he's got a good sense of business and how businesses run and the laws that govern businesses. He's working the Resolution 12 mob.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and as you say, the football governance.
Oh, you were slagging his grammar.
Please do. But as you'd mentioned there yourself, Mark, the issue of football governance, which this guy clearly seems to have a lot of sort of knowledge of. That's the next point that Celts for Change 2021 raise. They are very concerned that there have been abject failures by Celtic PLC with regards to a few points, and we'll just whiz through them because every one of them in itself perhaps perhaps would be a whole hour session on their own, so we'll just brief over them.
Well, we're sitting for an hour talking about Sevco and liquidation.
Well, exactly. Yeah, but they're particularly concerned about the secret five-way agreement, which Celtic accepted and UEFA had no knowledge of at the time. They're annoyed at the club for their failure to take Resolution 12 forward, which is Resolution 11 now. They are disappointed at the club's failure to challenge the Lord Nemo Smith Commission findings over EBTs at Old Co. They're less than chuffed about the club's failure to take up UEFA's offer to investigate the Sevco new club issue. Now, this makes a reference to a lawyer's letter that was a letter from Traverso at UEFA. Two lawyers in 2016 about Sevco being a new club and the failure of Celtic to pursue it and to take up UEFA's offer to investigate it further. Now, they do come on and they make two very, very valid points, and I think we're all very disappointed with how the club has dealt with these. And the first one is that Celts for Change feel that there hasn't been a strong enough challenge to the SFA and the SPFL about the quality of refereeing that we've seen. Now, they're not saying outright that it's anti-Celtic or pro-Sevco, but I think reading between the lines, you can assume that that's really what they're referring to. And finally, they're very unhappy about the quick sanctions that our club and players have received this season about COVID breaches. Yet those same sanctions haven't been enforced at other clubs with the same degree of swiftness. And perhaps, again, that's a reference to our neighbours over the other side of the river. So their proposed solution to all this is that it's important for Dominic McKay and Celtic collectively to pursue investigations into Sevco for all of their previous wrongdoings. They want Celtic to come out and make public statements about the secret five-way agreement and all of the rule-breaking, tax evasion, tainted titles, new club status over at Sevco and so on. Now, they reckon that if the club are actively seen to look into these matters further, then it's going to encourage a greater take-up of season tickets than would otherwise be the case. Now, I think that latter point's maybe a bit of a red herring because we do have a full season ticket allocation and a sensible and reasonable size of a waiting list as well. Obviously, that could be affected by COVID things going forward and so on. But I don't know if there's much. I don't know if that's a particularly good benefit because I think the fans will be there for the season tickets anyway. Mm-hmm. Paul, your own thoughts on that issue? Are those issues to have with football governance?
Yeah, I think this board that we have now is just letting things go as it is. They've never questioned any decisions that the Scottish FA have done against Rangers. They've just let Rangers continue basically as the same club, and that they haven't really questioned the 55 titles that practically every media outlet is saying that Rangers achieved this year. Mm-hmm. So I think, but then again, do they want to be involved in that kind of stuff? The Celtic board, is it going to come out that Celtic is just a jealous club that you could?
Or is it going to come out that Celtic are complicit?
Yeah. But I can understand the way they're going about the referees this year. But I'm actually a bit disappointed that we haven't kind of come out and questioned the referees this season. Not just Celtic, but any other club within the Scottish Premiership this season, because decisions have again against teams when they're playing Rangers this season.
But it's got to take Celtic to come out and get involved. Because there's no point to the manager of Barnack or St Mirren coming on the telly and complaining about a penalty that they didn't get or a soft penalty that went against them. It needs to be the Celtic managers talking about it. Then it'll get a bit of thing in the media. It'll take a bit of a role in the media. Even if, like, when the Snooer boys start at Aberdeen, we need the bigger clubs to start, and then it all becomes one big issue.
But can you see that being changed if Celtic make a comment on that?
The best thing to do, and I think you should do it anyway, in every country, is to bring in outside referees. Mm-hmm. Every country, even down in England. I mean, English I've listened to Ed Owan going on about this Mike Dean guy that's something to do with referees in England, and it's the bias and bit that he shows. Is it against? I think he's a Man United fan. That he shows against Liverpool. It would be blatant to us, surely, because we're kind of up here in Scotland and we're always aware of that kind of thing. If you look at it down in England, it happens down there, but we just don't put it down to. It's nothing to do with religion or politics or whatever, but it does go on everywhere in the world. And then we could talk about all the match fixing that goes on all over the world. And that's one of the things that they should do. It should be outside referees brought in, and that. But the FA should cover the money. It should be the Scottish FA that hire our referees out and hire referees in, and the money will balance itself out. Because you're charging somebody for your ref and they're charging you for their ref. And that would be one way that would...
But what I can't understand...
Away.
Sorry. What I can't understand about the refereeing in Scotland is that it's not just the referee. It seems to be the linesman as well and the fourth official that are blind to these decisions. You know, if the referee is away from the play, you have the linesman who's near to it. You know?
Very, very valid points, guys. And I think it's just one of those things where somebody is going to have to, at some point, take a stance over it and say, this is just...
Can you see a change, Chris, yourself?
Well, I think, Mark makes some very, very good, valid points there. It does go on everywhere. I think because our situation is so volatile, it's Celtic Rangers or Celtic Sevco and so on, that when you do see these mistakes, it's easy to think that was deliberately done against us. Now, before any listeners jump on that particular comment, let me make it clear. There's a lot of times when it does appear very, very much as if that is the case. But yes, it does go on everywhere. We perhaps feel it more because it is really always down to two clubs, really, who wins the league and most of the cups and so on. And I think it becomes a bit more obvious, I think, when we do see it happening up here. But the final point that these guys, that Celts for Change 2021 come on to, it's what they class as club persona and identity. Now, they feel that some of the actions and public statements from the club have been embarrassing to fans. They're annoyed. They're annoyed about hiring the last manager in the shower room as well, without even looking at other candidates. And they feel that Celtic, as a company, has been complicit in helping the reappearance of Sevco. And they seem to have this feeling, why would you be so keen to turn a blind eye to an organisation that, thrives on the hatred of our club? It hates everything about us and it hates everything we stand for. Also, they're not happy with Celtic's acceptance of Sevco's behaviour in general around all the tax evasion, racism, cheating, and as they refer to it, the biggest crime of all, and that was Celtic's acknowledgement that the liquidation in 2012 didn't actually happen. They don't like the use of Parks of Hamilton for the team bus, while Mr. Park himself publicly mocks our club. And they feel that this sort of highlights or underlines the disconnect that the club has with the fan base, that they don't see this sort of everyday stuff and see how it's irking the fans. And lastly, they're not at all chuffed by the Dubai trip at a time when everybody else was told to stay at home, and the fact that the club, or someone, whoever made the decision within the club, felt that it was still okay to do it. So their proposals for this particular set of issues is, effectively what, they start off by saying, when you're a Celtic supporter, look, you're always going to get lots of hatred anyway from Rangers fans in particular, but other fans in Scotland as well, purely because we have been so successful. And what they're saying is we need to show solidarity. And we're not talking about the fans just showing solidarity, because that's always there. What we need to see is our solidarity being mirrored by the club. They mentioned that, worldwide, we have 9-10 million fans worldwide. And it's the club that gives us that common sense of identity and that common cause. So they want the club to understand that It's the club itself that is the focal point of that community, and statements from the club need to reflect that. The club needs to stand up for the fans and itself, and they need to call out any wrongdoing by others, irrespective of who it is. And not just sit idly by watching things happen elsewhere. So what they're saying, how can the club do that? Well, they want to get rid of Parks of Hamilton, for example, as a starter. They say it's only a little thing, but it shows a statement of intent. They also want to see Ian Bankier, the chairman at Celtic. They want to see him out. They're saying his position is untenable and he shouldn't be there anymore. They want to see a continual connection with the fans right through the season, not just when it comes up to season ticket renewal. You know, it's almost as if they're implying that Celtic are almost behaving like a political party. They'll, you know, when it comes to season ticket time, they're telling you, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then when they get your money, they're running away with it and saying, just go and sit in the corner and shut up. That's how it reads to me, how they feel the club is looking at fans. They want the club to get in contact with all these non-voting shareholders to give them a voice, and they want them to update all the shareholder records in order to allow them to do that. Now, they're also suggesting, again, I think this is a bit of a side issue for them, but, you know, perhaps not the worst idea in the world. They want season ticket holders to be offered the chance to add a few quid to their annual renewal if they want to, and then for that to be converted into shares and given to the Celtic Trust, because Celts for Change reckon that in time that could well help bridge this gap between the club and the fans. And they're just trying to remind Mr. McKay that, you know, he should be aware that that was always part of Fergus McCann's original idea whenever he did what he did for us. So basically, in summary of the whole document, like I said, there's nothing new in it, and there's nothing that the club isn't already aware of. And in all honesty, I don't expect this or any other open or closed letter, for that matter, to come as a shock to anyone at Celtic. But at the same time, fair play to them for putting it out, because they're letting unconnected fans see that there is someone who is at least trying to make a difference. And that can never be a bad thing, guys. What do you think yourself, Paul?
Well, I've actually, the last couple of, on the rumours site, I actually found out that it was Park that was providing the buses to the Celtic team.
Yes, that's right. He has been for a long time.
I was actually basically in shock that we could actually give this fella money. That, and we know Blaney's probably going back into our main rival's bank account.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's the first thing I think we have to do anyway, is just cancel that. Show it, God, there's more than one bus courier in Scotland, I think, than Park's company, you know. So
buy around 2 buses.
Yeah, I was actually in shock when I found out that, you know, and I like to see that cancelled with immediate effect. I don't know, is there a contract there that we have to buy out the contract or anything there, Mark? Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't think it would cost them anything to change companies.
Yeah, but I don't know any club that would hire.
Don't get us wrong, Parks of Hamilton are probably the biggest and best bus company about here.
Mm-hmm.
But why not just buy around 2 big buses, get them all painted up the Celtic colours, and whenever
Exactly.
the players drive in them, 2 big luxury coaches.
Yeah, exactly. Like you like to have Barcelona, you've Real Madrid's,
They've all got their
you've
own.
Manchester United, they all have their own buses, don't they? Yeah, exactly. You know, so
sure, they could park. Yeah, sure, it's not. They could park them around the back of the hotel, couldn't they?
keep them on Peter's seated driveway. Part of his settlement, Peter, you need to park your buses up at night. What is it, shunting into? That's what they call that, shunting buses.
Yeah. But I mean, basically, yeah, overall, guys, that's the whole statement from Celts for Change 2021. If anyone who's listening wants to have a look at it themselves, as I say, Ed has put a link up on the podcast section of our own forum, and you'll get it.
Live chat as well. I've put a link in live on here.
Yeah. So, anyone wants to have a bit of a look, and we'll just see how it goes.
So now we're just going to move on to... Oh, sorry, Mark. Walk away.
Sorry, what?
I was just going to move it on to the next topic.
Oh, when you go, move it on. No bother.
Yeah, I was just going to say we're just going to move on to the next topic. We're just going to go through some of the live chat comments and just comment on some of what our subscribers are saying. JFP says we cannot let Griffiths go to Aberdeen to do damage to us. And I actually agree with that. I think.
What I was alluding to is
Yeah,
if Box
you know,
scores a winning goal in a cup final or a semi-final against us.
yeah, and I think that's what you'd be afraid of, letting a player like he's not going to be a first-time player in Celtic next season. I think we're going to be honest with that. But Griffiths will get you goals. But if Griffiths goes to likes of Aberdeen or anything like that, he will score goals for them because I think he'll be a big player for another Scottish team if he went to them.
Oh, he would be the main man at another team in Scotland.
Yeah.
Another team in Scotland would be looking at Griffiths and saying, right, you're your main striker.
Yeah.
If Aberdeen are interested in him, he's not going to go to Aberdeen to sit on the bench because he might as well sit on your bench and get paid more money for it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yet, for some reason, it seems to be the players who do leave Celtic and then come back to play against us, they always flip and score.
They do. They do. We could talk about one fella who I actually despise and I hate, and I hate me is Kenny Miller.
Oh, yes.
Anytime he played against us, he scored. And I'm right in saying,
I said on the site the other week, there's only two players, no matter how bad they were for Celtic, there are only two players that aren't welcome back, and it's Kenny Miller and Judas. That's the only two of them, according to me. See other folk, he shouldn't be allowed back in Parkhead, he's garbage.
No, I wouldn't let him back. I wouldn't let him near the thing. I wouldn't let him near the door. That's what I wouldn't.
You also remember... Do you remember when Gidetti left us? He hardly got a game for us. He was the laziest player you ever saw, and he came back and played against us in Europe and got.
He did.
Was it 1 or 2 goals he got against us in Paradise?
He did. A lot of players just can't fit. Just don't make it at Celtic really, and then when they move, they come back to haunt us. That's.
It's the pressure of playing for Celtic.
I think it is. I
mean, look at Pookie, right?
Yeah.
But it took him another 2 or 3 moves maybe after he left Celtic for it to click, and you see that he wasn't doing enough. He wasn't working hard enough in training. He wasn't giving his best. And then when he started playing well, and then a season in the Premier League.
Just going back to Pukey there, just my toss to two of you there, like that's what I get about these projects, signing these young players. And we talked about it yesterday, saying there's actually no pass for these players to break into the first team, that we don't give them a proper pass. And then when these players leave to go to other clubs, they find that pass, and then they come 10, 20 million strikers in the Premier League, and we sold them for 1 million, 2 million because we haven't given them a proper chance to break into a first team. That's what I think. That's what I actually hate. That like it's good that we sign these young players and trying to breed them into the first team, but we're not letting them give them that chance to break in, and then we end up letting them go for pittance. And then they're top strikers in some other club, or even the Premier League example, like Pukey when he was in the Premier League last season.
Yeah, I see there, guys. Sorry, JFP. I see you made a wee comment that Cadet was a fantastic striker. So it wasn't Cadet I was referring to. What do you call that? No, was he the Scandinavian Gidetti or something? That's who I was referring to. In case he had confused me with thinking I was talking about Cadet Jorge.
I can't think who you're meaning, Colin.
He did. I can't get the name, but I know who.
John. What was his name?
Right, the Man City, him that came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Gadetti with a G. Right, I've got you.
Yeah, Goosey, want it, Goosey. That's why he pronounced it in Ireland, Goosey. Good thing. I know the fella around, the blondie-haired guy.
Yeah.
But everybody thought he was going to turn into a cracking player. But
I think he would.
It was his attitude again that let him down.
Yeah, I think he was very lazy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was another Bettner for Arsenal, wasn't he? He was not that he was going to be this biggest player. Chris Bettner, and that never kind of took off in his life, into it.
Yeah.
So I have another one here, lads. It's again, it's JFP. It seems to be texting in is that if a manager goes, the structure of the play of the club shouldn't change, and I think we should be kind of appointed managers who actually would come in and play the Celtic way instead of totally trying to change the whole way we're trying to play.
We need to change the full ways we're playing. But I think what JFP's meaning is what I was saying. When a manager to rip the heart out the club. Everything should still be able to tick on to the next manager comes in.
Exactly.
I think that over the last few years, guys, our club has sort of lost the Celtic way, as it were.
Yeah.
You know, there's been that many conflicting styles of management over the last 10 years or so that, you know, what is the Celtic way of football anymore?
I don't know, Chris,
it has to change. It has to change, and it has been changing to the point where we don't really identify with it anymore. You know, we all love the out and out attacking football at a time when it was, you know, when the stadium was full and you had players who had that amount of fight in them to want to go out and get in the faces of the opposition. But we've lost that over the last few years. And I think it would take a very strong guy to bring that back again. I hope we can find him.
We actually discussed that on the first podcast, is that we actually don't know what way we play at the moment. So as you said, we're changing so many times. And I can't remember a Celtic team actually for a long, long time who actually would get in the face of the opposition team, intimidate them.
Well, I think really it's Martin O'Neill days, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Hard tackles, not afraid to throw your body in the line. You know, the likes of John Hart and Chris Sutton up front. You know, they were big, big characters we had in that team, and who actually did give their all for the club.
Absolutely,
you know, they never moaned that they wanted to leave, or Chris Sutton never wanted to leave. One day it was Gordon Strachan.
We could see players of that calibre now. We wouldn't never have a hope of signing them.
No, we wouldn't. But that's just showing how.
So it's okay saying we want players to come in and fight and be up for the fight and go for every ball and that, but you still need to be able to play football.
Can we attract these players though? At the moment,
There was a Chris Sutton down in England, you know.
Yeah.
There's no way we would be able to afford him to come up here.
Yeah.
I mean, for £6 million, wouldn't it be paid for Sutton?
£6 million, yeah. And Sutton, he was at his prime.
And Sutton was as good at playing at centre back as he was at playing at striker.
Yeah.
That's a very, very valid point, Mark, because I think a lot of people overlooked that about Sutton. He was a terrific defender as well as a prolific striker.
He played a few games for us at centre back.
Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is that's not what that's not what he's remembered for. He's remembered as being a striker. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't take away the fact that he was equally capable in defence as well.
But we always had kind of big players as well. When you look at the Celtic team down the years, you had Van Dijk, you'd Wanyama, you'd Hooper. You had these big players.
Yeah.
And now it's like when you look at this Celtic team now, there's actually no spine from the keeper straight down the middle for the first team. There's no spine there really in the middle of the park just to hold that whole first team together. You know, there seems to be no toughness in this squad at the moment. You know.
Well, yes, that's a point actually I was making the other night. That's what we seem to be missing. We seem to be missing that. Yes, I appreciate. Yeah, you can't just be a hard guy. You have to be able to play as well. But we did have our fair share of guys who could do both, and we have lost that team mentality. And if you remember, I'd made reference to the fact that one of our players gets kicked off the park nowadays, and the rest of the team stand watch.
Yeah, they stand back and watch it. Yeah, like you see Rangers fans and Rangers players and they're punching our players and they're just walking away. The only one who actually I would say did come up was Christoph Fire. He's about the only hard man we actually have in this first team at the moment.
Yeah. And I think really that's all down to the way the team has been assembled. That sort of toughness hasn't been well. At least to me, it appears that toughness was never taken into consideration when players were being recruited.
Yeah, I have an interest here from William Seven. We need to get back to winning the title, and we can walk in the style as we go along. But I think that's where we fell this season, is because we didn't have a style. We kept changing the formations. We didn't know what way we wanted to play. I think that's where we fell short. This, and we could blame Lennon, we could blame Ting, but Lennon is picking the players to go on that, and those players are responsible on that first team for these failures. When they're turn up, they're not going into tackles, as we're saying there. When when you're paying for a team like Celtic, as a fan, I expect you to put your all into that jersey on that field. And I don't think you can say that for much of this first team squad this season.
No, I think you're right, Paul, because we as fans give every bit of emotion that we have when we're watching or attending games. And we just don't seem to have that. JFP makes a very good point there. He says we have absolutely no dig. Can Ferguson give us some? I assume he's talking about young Lewis.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that. Yeah,
on the forum today.
Yeah, and
a lot of folk don't want him, but I would be happy with signing him.
Oh, I think he's a terrific talent.
Would you like to get him to calm down a bit because of his red cards, and he picks up a lot of red cards, don't they? A lot of people are saying in the rumour site there, Mark, that he picks up a lot of red cards.
That's come with maturity, hopefully, isn't it? Yeah. Scott Brown was an angel when he was younger.
I think
that's right. Yeah, even Bruni himself said he actually identified, or someone helped him identify, that part of his problem when he was young is that he was drinking too many fizzy drinks and eating too much chocolate, and the E numbers were falling out of him, and that was what was making him hyper.
I certainly don't think that was Neil Lennon anyway that told him that stop drinking fizzy drinks and stuff.
But Neil Lennon was fighting him for the chocolate.
But definitely, lads, on young Ferguson, I think, yes, he's young. And I know that it had been mentioned there the other night about, but could he play for Celtic? He comes from a Rangers family and all that. Yeah. But that isn't, I think, Mark, you'd covered the point that that's not what the family are like. In fact, I think actually Barry Ferguson's married to a Catholic Celtic supporter.
Yeah, their kids went to Catholic school.
Yeah.
Barry pays for his father-in-law's season ticket at Celtic and that. They're no bitter. They're no way inclined at all.
Yeah. I mean, Barry Ferguson was our Scott Bratt.
I think I couldn't say for certain, but I think his mum's like a wee old churchy kind of woman. You know the type I'm talking about.
Yeah, he was a tough player back in the day.
Yeah.
One day, Barry Ferguson, no matter how small he was actually a tough player.
Oh, yes.
He was. He was.
Well, wasn't the best technical player. He was a good player when he was younger, but he never really progressed like technical wise. But his will to win, his actual physicality during games and that. But you can compare that with somebody like Roy Keane, Scott Brown.
Like the nice one here from Pedro. Quality director of football, manager, who backed in the transfer market, and we'll be back, but we need a long-term strategy, not a short-term strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think really that's what the guys at Celtic for Change are want to going for, and again, they're simply reflecting what all the fans are thinking anyway and have been doing for quite some time.
I mean, there's guys out there, you have good jobs and that, there are guys out there that'll be running their own companies and that. Have you ever heard of a CEO being in charge for 17 years?
No, it's a very, very rare thing.
It's like a 5 to 8 year lifespan. To me, it should be. You've got a 5-year plan, and if you're a big club, like playing at the top, money's not an option. You can plan longer than that.
Yeah,
I've seen talking to the other heads and that. It's like, the way that these clubs treat young players, everything's planned out. They know exactly what they're going to be doing for them. This is where you'll be in 3 years' time. You work hard. This is where you'll be. Then you'll end up and you'll get a loan for a year, and then that'll be you ready for your first team.
I have an interesting one there for you, right? I was looking through the Celtic website there this morning, and I was actually going through the youth academy, and I was looking at what they do. So first they treat the player how to behave in the Celtic in a proper manly way. They condition them, they do body training, they build them up to where they want to be, and they actually say they actually do give them a plan to be in the first team, where that's through their under 16s. If they're good enough, they'll be progressed into the 18s, and then under 23s. Then they gradually make their time into reserves. But it's kind of
doing that. Let's face it.
That's what I'm saying, Mark.
They're not doing it well enough.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's when they get to the under 23s and they get to the reserves, that's where they're not that's where they're breaking down is there. I think that's where these players aren't making it into the first team. They're just kind of stuck in reserves. Like the fella Harper there that recently left us there to go back to America. He was a long time reserves, and he wouldn't have got his game only for this Dubai trip come in January. So
And that's
it
the
seems
only
to be
reason they go to a game.
yeah, and that seems to be the problem when they get to under 23s and they get to they start playing the reserves team. They just seem to be stuck there all the time, and they're going on about body conditioning to help players to build up body mass and stuff like that. What has happened to Dembele in these couple of years that he hasn't kind of bulked up over the last couple of years?
Has there been a rumour, or is there any truth in the rumour, do any of you know, or indeed any of the guys listening, that young Dembele is working his ticket out of the club? Or
I think he
what's
is,
the story with that?
But for what I've heard, he's told them that he'll be moving.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I heard as well, and I was saying to Mark in the first podcast there, Chris, is that supposedly Lennon told him he was too lightweight for the Scottish game.
You said that the other night, Paul.
Yeah, and before he comes into the first team, he needs to bulk up. And suppose him and his agent did like that remark by Lennon.
I think he needs to befriend Lionel Messi on Twitter and find out where he got his growth hormones from.
But that's the thing. Maybe it's just naturally a wee slight guy. You can't add, you can bulk up and work in the gym all you want, but some people, you'll still be a wee skinny guy, but you'll just be muscled.
Yeah.
And he's still, he is still a kid.
So he's
How old is he? He's only 16, isn't he?
16, 17, I think, is he?
Yeah.
He's around, but
kid, there's guys out there that are toty when they're 16, 17, by the time they reach 21, they're like Man Mountain.
Yeah. I don't think you can make it into a first team now as a 16, 17-year-old. I think one of the last ones I can recollect was Wayne Rooney. And it takes a very good player and a tough player to actually break into a first team now, isn't it?
Oh, Rooney was like a machine when he was younger, and then smoking, drinking, stuff.
Well, he was even tough as well, though, Mark, wasn't he? Rooney, when he was younger, he was a tough guy.
But he was into boxing. He used to box up to his.
Yeah.
I think he still done boxing training, but he actually used to boxing that when he was before he turned professional and that.
Now, what happened to his face?
I think he was just born like that because his brother. His sons look the exact same as him in that.
I think Rooney's a perfect example who fell out of someone who fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down.
With a few of them at Celtic. Look at Christie.
Yeah, but it took another club back for him to go away to have to bulk up to make him the player he was. He went away to Aberdeen. He wasn't getting in our first team. And then he went away to Aberdeen for a year and he came back a totally different player. So, we seem to be benefiting from sending these players out from different coaches to build them up and making the players they are when we actually seem to can't do it ourselves in our own youth academy.
Yeah.
But we're loaning these players out and they're playing games. To me, that's the most important thing. When you're bringing on young players, you can give them all the training you want, but they need to be playing games, competitive games. That's how we were talking about the Colts.
Yeah, that we would benefit from that. Yeah, exactly.
You're playing competitive games against guys that want to beat you.
Yeah. I think something that didn't help a lot of the younger lads in the development squad, certainly over the last couple of years, is that it's almost as if they knew that Lennon was always going to stick by the guys he knew, so they were never really going to get the call to come up and get involved in the first team.
I think so. I think so. I think when I was looking at, I was actually saying that before here to a few friends like that. Lennon always had his own players. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that these players that was signed this year, did he want those players? And he just stuck with the likes of Encham. He's regular players that were with him from the first time he was here. In this, his first round of jobs, he stuck with likes of Scott Brown. He played Izagiri when he came back for I don't know how long.
Beaton.
Beaton was out in the cold for numerous seasons, and he just be a puppy.
Lennon does. He seems to just have his pals, like the old pals act.
Yeah. But that's what the downfall is. If
you're playing a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-4-3-2, 4-3-1-2, I call it that. You call it the diamond triangle midfield. But But if you're playing that, you don't have Ryan Christie playing out in the right wing.
No,
Right,
no.
right. We know that Forrest is out injured, but it's a square peg in a round hole. There's no way in the world Christie's a winger.
But you're going by that, Mark and Chris. They're like, but whose fault is that? So that we actually didn't identify.
Well,
we had no wingers in our first team squad.
Well, we knew that.
We knew that. We knew that.
We were talking.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But why hasn't the squad rectified that? Or did Peter Lord go, well, no, we spent too much on players this year. You have to do what you want, Lennon. And that's why Lennon couldn't actually find the perfect formation, because he didn't have his wingers.
I think one of Lennon's issues as well, guys, was the fact that I think Lennon lacked confidence in himself to take a chance with some young guys, because thinking that, the older guys are the guys that I know, at least I know what they're capable of. They may not produce for me 10 times out of 10, but with a bit of luck, they'll produce for me 6 or 7 times out of 10. And I would rather, I would feel more confident in taking that chance of them having a bad game than I would in bringing a young lad at 18 or 19 up, or 20 or whatever from the development squad.
Exactly.
And I think when you couple that with this very, very clear tendency that he had to go with guys that he knew, and I think really that whole package, if you like, maybe is more of an indicator to Lennon's lack of confidence in his own ability to bring them in and develop them.
Yeah, I tell you, I have a good one here, and I think the best one was Neil Lennon playing Calamark left back against Sheffield, but was that not Brendan Rodgers that did that as well, didn't he?
Brendan Rodgers done it as well.
Brendan Rodgers done it as well, and we lost both games in those both games when he was at left back. You know.
And I think he was trounced at left back. He just didn't belong there at all, and he should never have been played there. It's not his natural position.
But that's what I think players think, because these are professional footballers. I think that some managers think if they play, they will perform. But if you're a midfielder, you're not used to looking over. You're used to looking over your back. You're not used to looking in front of you. And that's why I think why a lot of midfielders can't play left back wings, because if they push up, they're not going to be watching what's behind them, because they're not kind of used to that.
Yeah,
they're used to someone else picking up everything that's going on behind them.
Exactly.
That's down to their coaching when they're young boys.
Yeah.
Down to that. I mean, you look at Ajax. Ajax players can all play in numerous positions.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, if you coach them you get them when they're young enough and coach them, you can coach a player. You can coach a young boy to play any position.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't mean a guy at 5'5" can play centre back, but there's no reason if you're get through the right coaching, the right training, there's no reason that you can't play as a left back or a left winger.
Yeah. But and just on that point, Mark, as you say, somebody at 5'5" is not going to play at centre back. The only thing that should stop him playing at centre back would be his lack of height. It shouldn't be his ability, or it shouldn't be the coaching that he has received.
Just all you're doing is teaching them different aspects of the game. It's just to me, it's not a hard thing to do.
I see there. JFP just commented, Yoda, calm down. Yoda, calm down.
Yoda, that's my dog. That's my dog. That's my dog. Apologies about that. Poor Mark's dog getting blamed again.
He's actually quite good for us when I'm doing this. He just sits and stares at me.
Oh, my fella was good too. He was just sitting down there in the chair, and someone passed the window, and he just went ballistic. But there seems to be always kind of a thing there that Beaton always played in left back as well, and never kind of performed there either. He always kind of made a mistake, Beaton at the back line. We always kind of make mistakes in the back line. It's just the simple mistakes we always make.
I honestly couldn't tell you what Beaton's best position is.
No.
I mean, he looks comfortable in the ball. He very rarely wastes the ball. But I still couldn't tell you where I would play him in the team.
Exactly.
And isn't that a shame? Isn't that a terrible indictment on the coaching at Celtic, that they have a player who is a talented player?
Yeah, exactly.
when he's not injured, and they haven't been able to develop him into, a particular role, whether it's on the left side, the right side, or through the middle, or in the middle, or whatever. They haven't been able to help him identify where he belongs on the pitch, and I think that's a terrible indictment of the coaching that all of our players are subject to over the last few seasons.
Yeah, exactly. We actually don't know the best positions for these players. Playing the likes of Encham, Christie out of position just to fit in the likes of Encham as well, isn't it? You could argue about that.
Yeah.
But I can't understand though.
What would Encham's ideal position be? We saw enough of him, we should know that. But
I think Encham is better if you draw in Scott Brown's position. To sit in the back and pass the ball from the back out, because you have to give to Encham. He can pass the ball.
That's what I was just going to say as well. He can pass the ball.
And when Scott Brown has the ball, he's only passed it sideways or he's passing it back. You need a player who can pick up that ball. Remember Callum Mack played in that position, Scott Brown position. And the passing was just flowing forward. There was no passing back. There was no passing side. Everything was going forward within the team. And supposedly their Matt said he's supposed to be coming back to Celtic at the end of the season in Chan.
Well, he certainly hasn't done anything to earn a deal where he is, and there aren't any obvious rumours that there's anyone else having.
But is that a lack of confidence down to us then, though? Is it down to our club that he's not the player he was anymore, or is it his own downfall saying that he wants to leave over the years?
It's down to Encham.
Yeah,
it's down to him himself. I mean, as I've said, he is a good player. So why does he not work harder?
I have a good one here. Beaton's best position is on the bench.
but it's because it's in the olden days and that you would call him a utility player, or he can cover here, he can cover there. So Beaton is okay on the bench. If your centre half gets injured, he can cover.
He can come in and cover there, yeah.
Even he'll cover in midfield. He can probably even cover at fullback. But at his age, he shouldn't be a utility player at that. Do you know what I mean? He should have had that position nailed down.
Nailed down in over the year. But I think it's
fought to make that his own.
The reason I think, Mark, he actually hasn't been nailing down that position is because of all these injuries he seems to be picking up over the years. And that's actually a very concerning thing to me as a fan, is that how easily our players are picking up injuries the last couple of years and missing big games and missing 4 to 5 weeks of a season because of these injuries. We know Rogic has always been out, but Beaton's another one. We have Julian is always out. Griffiths is out. A lot of players seem to be picking up a lot of injuries of late. Is that down to the pandemic? Or is it down to the sports science and our fitness team? Or,
The problem is it's difficult, Paul, to identify really where the problem lies. I think the easiest thing for us all to probably collectively agree on is that we do have a big problem, and it's running right through the first team squad.
It is, yeah.
Julian's problem's his heart. He's not got a heart in him.
Or the lack of it, Paul, or Mark. Yeah,
that's his problem. It's the slightest wee knock and he's rolling about the park screaming and then the slightest wee knock he's out for 3 weeks.
Yeah, but even Barker's is supposed to be out injured and he hasn't been playing. Is that a lack of it, like that these players aren't playing week in and week out, and when they do come into the team, that's why they're picking up the injuries?
Yeah, because
the team for so long.
That could have something to do with it as well.
Yeah, like when you could say with Neil Lennon's selections this year that no player was the only player really that played the whole game was Callum Mark, but every other player was either on the bench 1 week, played another week. There was no consistent run really for any of the team within the squad this year.
And even if you look at the likes of young Turnbull, how many times did he start a game, was playing well, and was still hooked after half an hour because Lennon said he wasn't fit. Yeah, Lennon saying that he's not fit enough to last the whole game. The young lad was running around like a flipping gazelle.
Well, yeah, he was lasting the full 90 minutes for Motherwell before he came.
Absolutely, he was, and he was a very influential player.
This isn't at that level now. It's obviously went down if he came to us. So there's another problem.
We've another one here from Terence. There are players who pick up the amount of injuries as is down to down to the fitness, and is in our case lack of fitness. So I think we actually did like lack of fit, like maybe the training level has actually stepped down since.
It's like we're going about fitness and then our match fitness.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. It's what you're saying. If players could be fit and sitting on the bench, but then they go into a game and the game's a lot more fast and hectic than the training they've been doing. A wee stretch and that's their muscle away again. Or who was it said it turns? To me, it is down to fitness and conditioning.
I think though, if you remember, guys, over the in the last 10 years, I think one of the managers that we had who got the least level of recognition was Ronnie Deila.
Ronnie Deila, exactly.
Now, I think Ronnie is a guy that we maybe should have held on to, maybe not. He's maybe a guy that we should have maybe brought in, not as the first team coach, but as part of the backroom staff, because he seems to be exceptionally good. And apparently one of the biggest changes that was made at the club was when he came in, when it came to nutrition and listen, we keep going on about this, but it is a factor.
It is, yeah, exactly.
And fitness and so on. And Ronnie was exceptionally good at all of that stuff. Maybe if he had been brought in a different role, he might still have been here, still applying the techniques that he brought in, because there was a marked improvement after, even during his tenure, the fitness of the players wasn't something that we really ever had an issue with. And even when he left, there wasn't really an issue. But then, of course,
and you could argue
it all comes down to Lenny. A lot of people say Lenny just destroyed all of that. Or, maybe he didn't set out to destroy it, but he certainly didn't set out to maintain it. And I think that was a big issue.
Exactly. You could argue too there, Chris, that Ronnie Deila did lay the foundation for Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
When he came into this team, because the players were fit when Brendan Rodgers came into this team. And I honestly think, and going by commentary too, in the things that Ronnie Deila got a royal deal at the club. He was never left signing players that he wanted. Yeah. Players were brought in, and he did make these players better players, fitter players.
Like to bring in his own backroom staff. You get John Collins.
No, John Collins. Yeah, John Collins. I said John Collins was out to stab him in the back of any chance he probably could.
Yes.
And then you're going on about fitness then, and we heard then like this year then that the likes of Bayou and going to other clubs saying they're not fit enough to play games yet. Like when a lot of players at the moment that when they're leaving Celtic, they're actually not fit enough to go into another first team. It's actually bad the way our fitness has gone over the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, although now, it just goes to show you how short memories can be. Terence Casey has said, Ronnie brought in Katie, McGregor and Ayer.
He did, yeah. He gave them his chance. Yeah, exactly. And Cal McGregor always said it that he'd never forget Ronnie Deila for giving him the chance to break into this first team squad.
Yeah.
And I think you're right too, saying that.
There was another one that would have been away. Him and KT would have been away if... I'm not saying if it wasn't for Ronnie coming in as manager, but if Lennon had stayed on, the two of them would have been away.
But that's just the show's difference in the managers then as well, don't it? That you have there a manager, Ronnie Deila, who was actually bringing these young players through to the first team. He had a plan for them. And then you had Neil Lennon that didn't want these young players in his first team and just stuck with the same old guard.
I've said it on the site. Do you honestly think that Deila wouldn't have been working for the Man City group if he didn't know what he was doing?
He wouldn't be, no.
We were talking about earlier on, to pick the best men to do the job. Man City's run like that. All the analysts and that, they've fair dues, money's no option to them. So they can afford to bring in the best of the best.
I understand.
Ronnie Deila to run their team here in America, there's got to be something. He's got to have something.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point indeed, Mark. And I think, we could never dream of competing with Man City as far as money is concerned, but there's no reason why we can't run our own version of the same concept, perhaps just with lesser players, but still adopt the same principles and the same structure.
A cheaper version, basically.
A cheaper version, yeah.
But we always kind of produce big young players as well. We always had players coming through the the youth academy. You know, we always kind of had a system there, but over the last couple of years, it just seemed to just really fall apart, hasn't it? This transition from they don't,
I'd
you
say
know.
it longer than the last couple of years. It's been in the wane for years, as we spoke about last night.
Yeah, yeah.
Mark Burchill was the last striker we said.
Last week, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's only seemed to come. I'm saying is like over the last couple of years, like we're kind of only really seen it. You know that like Scott Brown is aging, and we didn't have a real replacement for Scott Brown for a long time until we have Zorro now. But we bought Zorro. You know what I mean? There's no players to come in that you can actually throw into Scott Brown's position, or as you said there, Mark, we don't even have. I said last night we don't have a recognised striker in our youth academy at the moment.
I think, guys, we are now reaping the rewards of having a lack of vision a number of years ago. And what I mean by that is, in sales coaching, one of the things that we always work very heavily on with guys and girls is that, you know, if somebody's performance is improving or declining, you don't necessarily see it from Monday to Tuesday. You might not even see it from one Monday to the next Monday. But you can see it from January to June, and you can see it from January to January. And it's a small drift, and by the time you actually do realize it, you find that you're in a very, very difficult position. And that's why it's very, very important to keep the focus on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to make sure that performances are not declining, because once they start to decline, it's an awful lot harder to bring them back up than it is to get them high and keep them high. And I think we have been a victim of that by not having the vision as a club to identify the likes of Scott Brown getting older. You know, I don't know. Was there someone in the club thought
Scott Brown's not going to last a lifetime, Chris?
Well, exactly. You know, it's almost as if someone at the club thought that, you know, Scott Brown didn't have birthdays. Yeah. And, you know, that he was always going to be 27 or 28. And they didn't see this happening, you know, and that for a club the size of Celtic, not to have a structure that has people in place to spot these changes and to fix them before they become a problem is quite baffling to me.
Just over to myself like that. But my big question is to the two of you before we finish up soon is, can you see our new CEO, David McKay, act on these problems that we're seeing at the moment? And from the new Celts for Change 2000, can you see him change this direction that this club is going? See that we have a problem on a youth system. Are we going to bring in a director of football? There are all big questions that he has to answer for. And do you think we're going to see? I know it's not going to happen straight away, like as you said, Mark and Chris said before, Rome wasn't built today. But can we see these changes coming to the club?
I think we will now, because I think everyone at the club can now look at each other and say, we have a problem, we have to fix this. Whereas before, when they were still winning the league, it wasn't so much of a problem because they were still getting the results that they wanted.
It wasn't so much a problem, but you could see it bubbling away just under the surface.
Exactly. It was always there, and there was no one, whether it was Peter Lowell or whoever it was, there was a collective reluctance to actually maintain the high level and an abject acceptance of letting it let our performances fall as long as we're still ahead of the rest. We don't care, and we've been caught out this year.
You hit the nail on the head with that, Chris. That was it. The fans were as guilty as the board. We thought all we need to do is just do enough to stay in front of Rangers, and everybody will be happy. And don't get us wrong, I thought when the transfer window shut back in the summer, I thought we did have enough.
Yeah.
We kept Edward, we kept Dyer, we'd added players. I thought, this squad, I thought we would have won the league this year.
Yeah, but was that a problem then, Mark, that we kept these players that wanted away, Mark? Is it?
Well, hindsight's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
At the time you thought you think it's great, and then you're looking back and saying, she should have sold Edward and used some of the Edward money to bring in that Ivan Toney.
But you could say that then again there, Mark, but would Lol have spent that money on Toney if he got that money for Edward you know, he hasn't really replaced Kieran Tierney. He got 25 million for Kieran Tierney. Hasn't really replaced him, you know.
Well, I did have a think the other night, and I thought that maybe that was one of the reasons Celtic didn't push to sign Tony, was because Edward stayed. That came into my head the other night. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I just thought maybe that was the plan. If Edward pushes for his move, we'll go.
Do you think Edward told the club at the start of the season he wanted to leave?
Yeah, I do.
You know, like who would these players be that who Neil Lennon referred to at the start after the Cluj disaster? And Neil Lennon came out on the camera and said, "If players want to leave, leave." You know, who are those players, do you think?
Well, I certainly think Christie and Ayer were two of them anyway, possibly Eddie too.
Julian wanted away as well.
But look at the difference then there.
More problems about it than Ayer did, for what I've heard and been told. Ayer told Celtic, if a bid comes in and you accept it, and it's a good enough, he's not going to just go somewhere for money. Like if AC Milan had come in for him, he wanted to talk to him to see what they had to offer, but he wasn't going to cause any trouble about it. If the club didn't sell him, he wasn't going to take the huff about it. Whereas Julian was meant to have been a bit more stroppy about it, him and Encham and probably Edward, all the French guys in the corner. Do you know what I mean? Having their wee say to each other. Yeah,
you could always see the French guys together within training sessions, really, couldn't you? You could always see that there was a kind of a group of them that was always together. But then you're saying that players want to leave. Ayer never gave up, really, did he?
No.
He always gave his all, even though he was one of the players who supposedly wanted to leave. He never gave up this season, and he always gave his all.
That's professional.
That's being professional. That's being professional.
Edward didn't get his move. He should have just knuckled down and said, right, I've got another year here. I might as well try and break more scoring records, do what I need to do, and I'll get a move next year. They're no sell me. There's no point to go. What's the point of going in a huff and causing problems?
Yeah, that's like all that we were saying there, and I think it was yesterday's show, the previous show. That's the kind of French character in this. If they kind of don't get what they get, they'll down tools.
Remember Anelka?
Anelka.
There's no doubt,
temperamental.
They do
and
have
it's not just the French soccer team either. You know, it's all through their rugby team as well. They down tools. Like, it's just the French way, really, isn't it? You know.
Well, it's that, you know, you only have, without sounding, as if I'm anti-French people, I'm not. But French footballers do tend to be quite moody, shrugging their shoulders. I don't like this. This is not right. And there does seem to be that stubbornness and moodiness about them. And I'm not just talking about the lads that are at Celtic. I'm talking about, look at, as you say there, Anelka was a perfect example as well. Terrific talent. But sometimes, if he didn't get what he wanted, he just threw his head up and thought.
Patrice Eber got the hump when they qualified for the World Cup with that famous handball. Sure, they fell apart in that World Cup over players not being left out of the squad as well, didn't they? They all got the hump.
They had a pure meltdown in that World Cup, didn't they?
That's right, they did, yeah. They did indeed.
Get sacked and sent home or something for it.
Yeah, and they all had a big thing about it. So I like us to stay, kind of look beyond the French market, see what players are out there, because we always seem to be going back to that market.
Yeah.
And Newcastle did that for years. That their club is actually full of within the French players, and they got relegated that season. And I wouldn't like to see us go down that road of just constantly looking in the French market for players. I'd like us to look beyond the French league. Like, there is good players there. Like, there has to be good players in Germany as well that we could look at,
But we've got problems getting them in. But that's Brexit and the new rules and laws about work permits.
Yeah.
But honestly, I can see we'll need to scour, like the Championship in England, the reserves and squad players.
Yeah, but there are good players down there, Mark, that haven't been given a chance. There has been. Yeah.
I mean, I'd heard of Dembele, but I didn't really know much of that about him when we signed him. I don't imagine many has had, really, honestly. Who watches Fulham?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, even the Premier League teams.
Boy Shaw that we've just signed, he's meant to be a cracking player.
Yeah. Even the Premier League teams are going down to the Championship looking for players.
Get into our first team, he'll be straight into the first team squad, I reckon, that young boy Shaw. So there is players down there that you can pick up. It was guys that are maybe sitting in the bench. bigger clubs in the Premier League that want to play every week.
You see,
What we've done for years here. We've got to market it to come to Celtic for 2 or 3 years and look who we've sold on. Look at the look.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? This is what we can do for you for the next
Exactly.
for the next 2 or 3 years. You'll be playing,
yeah, but
challenging
yeah,
for trophies, and you'll get a big money move down to England or abroad or something after that.
Yeah, as you say there, Paul, there are lots of players playing in, well, not necessarily playing for the bigger teams, but certainly part of their development squads who are good enough to come to Celtic and get their chance and also make a difference to us as well. So if that is the market that we have to look at, then that's the market we have to look at. But we need to be looking in the right places. We need to have the right contacts. We need to be working on the contacts that we have with clubs down there. And we need to be, look, it's like anything else, you cut your cloth accordingly. If you can't get Jimmy, then get Johnny. And that's just the way it is in any walk of life. Football should be no different. If championship players or reserve team players in the Premier League, if that's our market, then we need to be the best in that market.
Yeah, but they're good enough really to come up and make, like, it must be if I was a young player and if you're not getting a game at the likes of Man City or Chelsea and you're sitting on the bench, you're not getting a turn. If Celtic approach you and go, look, come up here for a year or two, look what we did here, you can win trophies, you can get experience in the Champions League, that must be a great. There should be a big pull for the club to pull these young players to Celtic, to bring them up,
Well, Celtic's a big enough club that for up to a certain level, we should be seen as very attractive by these young lads. Yeah. Not just by the players themselves, but their agents as well, because you remember that when an agent's on the scene, he's working for the lad's future, but he's also working for his own future. And he's thinking, I'm sure a lot of those agents are thinking, well, Sammy's not going to get a game at United here, even though he's part of the squad. I'm not going to make any money out of him. If I'm going to get him sold on somewhere, I need to get him in the shop window. Let's bring him up to Celtic or wherever for a year or two and put him in the shop window, get him playing regularly, and with a bit of luck and with a bit of foresight from the club, because that's what our club is seriously lacking, and hopefully this season has taught them that and they don't make the same mistake again.
Do you think hopefully that could be room though, Chris, now with the last couple of players, like we have Edouard, you had Dembele, players who we signed, we gave him this plan, we told him we sell him in 2-3 years' time, and we didn't sell him. Do you think maybe agents are saying, well, look, we won't put you up there because they'll say they'll sell you on in 2 years' time, and they'll probably try to keep you for another 2 there?
Well, I think the big issue, I think the most high-profile example of that was Moussa Dembele.
Yeah.
I think that was more down, was it not, to Rodgers' management of Dembele, because it was Rodgers that had given him the personal sort of guarantee, as it were.
Yeah.
And then he then tried to backtrack. Now, whether that was under the instruction of the club to do that or whether it was his own tactic, who's to know? But that meant that when Dembele left, it was under a bit of a cloud, because, he came out and says, I was made a promise by Brendan Rodgers, and then he backtracked on me. So was that more down to Rodgers as a person, or was that down to Celtic? We'll never know.
There's a good one here saying there from Michael Conroy there saying, like, youths these days, even youths want 50 plus a week. Like, so you're trying to compete with some Premier League teams that have these youth players on 50 plus, but we're not looking at 50,000 plus players on youths. We're looking at championship players who are actually in the championship and are good enough to come into the Celtic team.
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say, though, whilst there might be some, to be honest, I think it would be a minority of youth team players that are sitting 50 grand a week. There wouldn't, I'm not saying that none are, but there wouldn't be too many of them are sitting on 50 grand just as a youth team player. I think, yes, they would be on more than our youth team players. I understand that. But if we were bringing them in the right guys and paying them first team wages. And the reason we're paying them first team wages is because they're good enough to play in the first team and not sit in the development squad the way a lot of the young lads have. Look at young Luke O'Connell came in, was supposed to be a terrific talent. Okaflex as well. And others, young lads that came in, young Benyu, who we mentioned the other night.
Yeah.
Lads that came in hoping they were going to get their chance, and for whatever reason, they didn't get their chance. Now, I think it would be unrealistic to say that none of them were good enough, because if none of them were good enough to begin with, then why were they even here in the first place?
I think it's a lot of what Mark was saying there in the last couple posts like that. A lot of it's to do to the players. Well, we're giving you a chance to come up here to break into this first team, but realistically, it's up to you to show the manager. Whenever manager's there, that you're able to break into that first team, you can make a difference. But going by the last 2-3 years under Neil Lennon, has that been ruined by his lack of playing young players, giving young players a chance?
Well, like I said earlier, Paul, I think, I'm not saying that is the sole reason, but I think it was a contributor, because young lads coming in and other young lads are talking, and they're saying, it doesn't really matter what you do here. You're not going to get in ahead of him.
Exactly. And I think that was that could have been actually a big split within the dressing room within Celtic. That like you have a good example was Thornhill there, like not getting into the squad till after Christmas. What was he doing sitting on the bench for the last 3-4 months at the start to see us go like, what do I have to do here to get into this first team?
At least one young player on the bench every game.
Yeah.
Even if you're allowed 7 subs now. Do you know what I mean? I mean, maybe one, at least maybe 2 young players. And see if you're playing against Aki's and you're 3-0 up and there's 15 minutes to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Stick a bit of game time.
When's the last time we were 3-0 up against anyone?
Oh, I know, but you know what?
I know what you mean, Mark. Of course, I know what you mean.
If you're through against a lower league team in the cup, I don't mean totally chop and change the team altogether, but you could put 2 or 3 youngsters in a Celtic team, and it should beat a team for your champ.
I like to see this young fella that he's only been lured out now to the Queen of the South, and he seems to be doing very well. Then is young Luke O'Connell. He seems to be doing very, very well, and he played with us kind of at the starting kind of pre-seasons, and there looks to be a player in this fella. I like to see him be brought into the next season under the new manager. Even as you said there, Mark, have him on the bench, bring him on, give him some experience.
Anytime I see young Luke O'Connell, I think he must be Paddy McCourt's love child. Was that her too?
That kind of look about him, isn't he? Don't say that. We're not going to end up like a Jeremy Kyle show.
Celtic rumours, Benefit Street.
that DNA journey thing you do on the tail.
Is Paddy McCourt Jack O'Connor's dad? What do you think? Here's the results, Jesus. Then it comes out, you're a liar. You're a liar, Paddy McCourt. You're a liar.
Paddy, did you know Luca's mum? Well, I met her, but I never went out with her. Or I only kissed her.
Folks, I think we'll leave it there for tonight. I'll pass you on to Mark to see the final word, but from myself, and I'm sure from Chris.
Yeah.
Good night.
Absolutely, folks. Anyone has been tuning in to listen tonight, thanks very much for your time. And certainly as the weeks go by, we'll try and bring as much quality content to you as we can. And we'll hope you enjoyed this evening's show for sure. And we'll tune in again sometime soon.
Just before you go to Mark, we're going to do a new show on Wednesday night where we'll be going through this live chat, but we want subjects that you want us to talk about so we can debate them, and hopefully we can get some callers in on Wednesday night as well.
Good stuff. That was a good show there. I'd just like to thank Chris and Colin for all their help in getting the podcast up and running and keeping it running, and all the lads that have joined us in the live chat. Thanks very much for coming in.
Yep.
I appreciate it. Yep. And remember, if you've not subscribed, subscribe and hit the thumbs up button.
Yep, and guys, just anyone that's listening, just to sort of reinforce what Paul was saying there, do start asking questions on the live chat, guys, because those are the things that we'd like to start focusing on. Whilst we could bring up
phone in.
It's not our show, lads. It's your show.
We can certainly develop some content for you and sort of preset topics and so on, but your interaction is what's going to keep the whole thing going, and we would encourage you to come on and ask us questions, and we'll do our best to certainly debate them and look at the opinions and the replies of other people as well. So this is really,
we're just beginning. I mean, we're beginners. We just want everybody to enjoy what we're doing, so it's up to them.
We're just
involved as well.
3 lads talking about our love for Celtic. That's all we are. And Paddy McCall's love child.
Paddy McCall with Buzz Bomb's pigeon.
Yeah, don't forget and we still need a name for the pigeon. Right, thanks, lads.
Cheers, lads. Good night.
Right, guys.
Bye.
Look after yourselves. Bye.
Bye, lads.